Got informed I'm back in the chair, so here I am. I know, it's so disappointing for you all. Yeah. It's okay. I won't be singing happy birthday to Kelly, so that's okay. No, he's hiding now. Right, and thank you, Linda and Matt. Welcome. So this is the draft statement of intent for CCHL and the group. So if we can keep our questions confined to that, that would be fantastic. So I'll hand over to Linda.
Thank you. The last of the three today. As with the others, there were workshops with each of the subsidiaries and the CCHL parent throughout March that exposed the drivers and issues that the subs are facing, the drivers of their profits and costs. Over the SOI period, the CCHL forecasts for the group are showing increased profit as well as increased capital pressures. Dividends are as per the LTP. And with that, I'll ask for questions.
Just before that, Matt, is there anything you want to say before we open it to questions?
No, happy to proceed.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. Yanni, just please keep in mind what I said from the chair, that if we can keep the questions with regards to the statement, the draft statement of intent.
So, page 13 of the LBC draft statement of intent, collaborative relationships, talks about embedding a refreshed approach to collaborative employment relations and problem solving. I guess I'm just trying to align that with the concern that's been raised at CCHL's AGM and, of course, around this table in terms of deputations, that the relationship doesn't seem very good at the moment. And I'm just trying to understand in terms of how CCHL, in terms of our statement of intent, what we could do to get greater targets to understand what's happening in that space. Because just reading the words on the paper makes it sound like it's really good. Over the last year, it feels like it's deteriorated quite a lot and doesn't align to what's in the statement of intent.
Yeah, so with respect to LPC specifically, some of our metrics, such as our turnover, is down from 12.1%, I think, to 8.5% in voluntary turnover over the last year. So some of the metrics are actually tracking very, very favourably. I appreciate there are some tensions with respect to the current proposal on the table and the engagement with the unions in that respect. I think the number is, there have been 9 town halls led by the Littleton Port CEO in the last month alone, so certainly visibility is very, very high, but I do understand where you're coming from in terms of the current tension. All of the companies within the group undertake engagement surveys with their staff and report on that, and I'm conscious of your desire for visibility around that and coming back to you with more reporting with respect to their engagement.
So on page 13, where you've got the key performance measures, inclusion index, engagement score, they seem very, very wide and very non-specific. Is there something, a workplace cultural satisfaction score or something that we could have in place that would give us some confidence that things were trending in the right direction? So I know around our council table, for example, when we've looked at our council surveys, actually we get really good data around what's happening in terms of trends and an understanding about how people are feeling about working here. That's a lot greater than what's in this.
I think there's a level of detail within the operating companies that goes to another level beyond this. I think that's across the board with respect to KPIs and targets that they might well have on an internal basis. Right. But appreciate if you want more colour around this, we can absolutely go away and have a look at what more can be provided in that respect.
So I'll signal that I'll happy to move a resolution to that effect.
Do you need one? I mean, Matt's signalled that they are willing, that they've got that information, I believe.
It would be good to formally record our feedback, so there's a record of it.
Okay. We can.
Yeah, and the other question I had in regards to LPC, and I know I've just got an answer back quite recently, but I'm still concerned around the cruise ship. We asked for work around an environmental and social levy, and I'm just not clear. It feels like we've made that request, but nothing's actually been considered because they don't want to scare the cruise ships from coming, which seems kind of counterproductive or counterintuitive to what we've actually requested.
But is that a speculation, or is that from CNZ or the port company? I'm not quite sure where that's coming.
So I put these questions through around this when we had our briefing, and I got the response back at 9:11.
And who is it from? Sorry,
Back
so I don't know.
from CC. Oh, I'm not from council staff, so I don't have a name of who provided it. Just from the Office of the Chief Executive. So I got it back this morning. And yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch. Did you guys all get that, or did I only get it?
It's a fair question, but I just think it'd be good to get a bit more information to kind of drive that a wee bit. So could we just take that offline at the moment and get information? So Mary, can you follow that up? Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay.
It's a fair question, and we have asked, and you have asked it before, but there's no information, so it's kind of no one at the table can answer that at the moment. So I think if Mary can follow that up, that'd be great to us.
But I think giving feedback as part of this process that it's still important.
No, I'm totally acknowledging it,
Cool.
but there's no one that can answer it. So it's not a pointless question. It's a very good question, but the point is to get the answer. And so Mary has said she will follow up on it and get the answer to us.
Yeah.
And maybe, Matt, that's something you'll take on board for sure.
Yeah, absolutely happy. Look, I think it's a much wider issue than cruise ship emissions. We're focused on Scope 3 emissions generally, and we had a briefing in front of council regarding our intentions in that space. So, yeah, far more than cruise ship emissions in our mind. It's Scope 3 emissions generally, which are, part of our thinking for our long-term planning.
But in the response I got, it said that bus costs led to multiple services skipping Littleton and going to other New Zealand ports.
But what I've asked for is for Mary to follow up, so because then there are some other people wanting to ask questions.
I've got a few more on CHL, but I'll leave others to ask now, and then we'll come back if we've got time. Cool.
Thank you. Tyrone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a question along a similar theme. So just on page 12 of the SOI for the
Could we have the page of the
port? Yeah, I'm getting there. Thank
right,
you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say page 12. It's page 408 of our agenda. Sorry, but you're right to raise that.
Yeah, thank you.
It talks about it's throughout the SOI, but it specifically talks about strategic priorities, engagement, with the workforce and all that sort of stuff. Now, the port's going through it's done the pre-engagement for a 30-year master plan at the moment, right? It's employed a consultant, GHD, which isn't the place that makes the hair straighteners, but I don't think it is anyway. So they did. So we had at Community Board, we had a presentation by the consultant on last Monday where he talked about all the people that he's engaged and talked to for the pre-engagement for the master plan. And I said, have you talked to the unions? And they said no. So I'm kind of like a bit perplexed about the gap between talking about engagement with the workforce and doing a master plan where you're not really talking to the people that work there at all. It's kind of like, would you do a master plan of a hospital without talking to the doctors?
Look, I'm happy to pick that up. I think there has been a lot of engagement or attempted engagement with the unions of late and any staff affected, and particularly as part of the current restructure. I can't comment to the engagement specifically to the 30-year master planning process, but that is still at a very early stage, and we're going to come back in front of council before we're making any significant steps forward with respect to that planning stage. So,
thanks, Matt. Because just to underline that, there was a newspaper article yesterday where the consultant talked about having talked to 50 different people and organisations, 50, which is quite a lot. I'm surprised that the Maritime Union and the RMTU wouldn't be among those 50, but
I'll pick that up with Graham to make sure that there is appropriate staff engagement as part of that. But
thank you, Tyrone. It's a really good point. So thank you, Celeste.
It's just a very sort of specific question, but you mentioned town hall meetings, which sounds great. Are they open to the public? Like, what's the format for those? Is it an internal thing, or is it, because when I think of a town hall, I think everyone's welcome to come. It's fully sort of open to the public. Is that the?
No, these are staff meetings where Graham is out and about on their location, their site, where they're working, wherever that might be within the port. So the terminology, but internal LPC meetings.
I see. And is there, because I think if it's presented as being sort of because to me that's just sort of BAU stuff, right? Internal meetings with workers.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm just saying we're taking it to another level at the moment.
So if we wanted to take it to another level, which is more of a public form of engagement that includes workers, is there a format for that?
Yeah,
Like
I think there
hall?
was an 8-minute online video that's just been put up in the last week or so. We've extended the silt curtain and spending some more money, sort of going above and beyond what our resource consent requirements are. So there's no sort of one forum where we try and cover everything off, but there are initiatives to engage more widely with the public, and digital's probably the most accessible of those.
So just in terms of asking, you mentioned you could go back to Graham, is that something that we could get a bit more information on, like maybe having more of a town hall format that is open if you're going to have them within the internal organisation? Is that something we can look at? Just looking at page 408 in terms of, some of the kind of objectives around engaging with people and making sure that there is good communication.
Yeah, I mean, I'll happily pick it up with Graham. There is, as Councillor Fields alluded to, there was 50 lots of engagement with the community. There's the Mana Whenua Advisory Group. There's various forms. There's the whakaora for the harbour health. There's various engagement forums that Graham particularly attends. So if there needs to be more, and if we think another group is missing out, then grateful for that feedback. But yeah, we are trying different versions of engagement at the moment.
So this might be if you emailed Matt just your specific concern of what you want to achieve, that it might help. Okay, thank you. And Kelly.
Thanks, Matt. Just looking on page 283 under 4.6, you talk about we're talking about the debt of the group is approximately 2.8 billion, and which is an increase of around 300 million since last term. And it's obviously to support current infrastructure or reinvestment in. How comfortable CCHL with the debt level at the moment?
Yeah, look, we're comfortable, and we're refinancing some debt shortly. So the current position is acceptable, but the interest burden is significant across the group, and ultimately debt. The higher our debt burden, the less flexibility it allows us to pursue any alternative initiatives or support the subsidiaries or deal with times of challenge, which we've all faced around here. So there's no sort of straightforward answer to your question, but certainly over the next 10 years, there's a growth in our debt profile at a group level. We're seeing significant investment, particularly in Orion, and to some degree over at the airport. And so, managing that as a something that we're comfortable with where it stands at the moment, but we have limited flexibility.
And the impact of interest payment of 100 million in each of the past 2 years, I mean, does that seriously limit, what you're able to do?
We're well within our covenant ratios. We're comfortable with where we stand today, but absolutely. The debt and the interest cost associated with it does limit what we can do, and we have to be prudent with respect to meeting our financial ratios that are expected by our bondholders.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Yanni, we've got number 4 up there, and are you happy with that?
I can't read it from here.
Oh, do you want to get up and have a look?
I think it was more a request for CCHL and its companies to provide additional key performance measures around engagement and cultural surveys. So, yeah, Sorry, I was just drafting something here. It's just hard because I just got it this morning, a couple of minutes before we started. But
So
effectively, like, I would like to call out LPC on page 12. So I think
what's the overall pay? But it does context and detail it to the engagement and culture surveys. So I mean, isn't that covering what you're after? I mean, asking for the details of the engagement, which is something that Celeste brought up, which is quite right.
The feedback is putting something in the SOI in terms of a KPM that shows a target so that we can clearly monitor and know what's happening. At the moment, the targets are so wide that it's really hard, and there's no trend information.
Well,
Sorry, there is trend information, but there's just a contradiction between what's in the SOI around the industrial relations and what's the feedback we're getting on the ground.
I know what you're trying to achieve, but what I think would be better is to ask Matt to go back to the subs and ask them to look at this and bring something back rather than...
Yeah, totally.
So I'm quite happy, I know it's yours, but I think it's better to be kind of open rather than kind of...
that's fine.
Is that okay? So I know what you're trying to achieve. I think we all know what you're trying to achieve, which is right, but...
And it's also around industrial relationships.
Yep.
So that needs to be put in.
But my concern is that if we put too much detail in, it'll close it down. I think if we can leave it up, because Matt is quite aware of what you're after. Would that be a fair statement? So can we let Matt go back to the subs with this number 4 and come back next time with this information? Because this is only a draft, so we're not signing off on anything at the moment.
Right.
But they will come back, and that's when you can ask if it's missing.
So it's not so much as more context and detail. It's actually around setting targets that show and then measuring against targets to show what's happening. Does that make sense?
So the targets are there, just for the record, on page 13, but you want more targets or you want different targets?
Yeah, well, more specific targets, and actually targets around the industrial relationships, which we don't, you can't tell from that. And in fact, as I said, when you read the report, the SOI, it makes it sound like everything's really good. But I mean, I don't think it is. It's certainly not what I've seen in the last year. Things are getting worse. Things have been deteriorating. So how can we have confidence that there's a commitment to improving those relationships with the targets that are being set? Is the key.
Entirely.
So
through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, so if I understand correctly, Councillor Hanson, what you're seeking are the targets, some more targets to be
more specific
targets to be presented, and I guess that's a question that we can, because this is providing feedback to the to CCHL for them to consider, and so we can present that and ask rather than requested to provide more context and detail. It can be requested to provide more specific performance measures relating to the engagement and culture surveys undertaken.
And industrial relationships.
And industrial relationships. And that we can
Cool.
then ask the CCHL board to consider that, and that
That's
could be presented. But it is, under the SOI, I think it is important to understand what the purpose of the SOI is, to ensure that we get a statement of intent from them, and it is by nature quite a strategic document. And to the chair's point, we need to be careful of not going too granular.
Sure.
Otherwise, we risk closing down the overall objectives that we're seeking to achieve.
When we're reading things in the SOI that do not align with what's been happening, it's concerning, right? And there are very specific things in there around industrial relationships, working with unions, collaborating, that are not being matched with the feedback we're hearing at this council table.
So I'm just. I haven't heard in any writing the opposite of this. So I'm just kind of thinking what you want to achieve. If I'm correct, Yanni, is what are the targets set and how close we are, or CCH and the family are, to achieving those? Is that
Yeah, but my biggest concern remains with LPC, given that they've had a number of cultural reviews. There's been obviously this health and safety stuff there that's important, and there's cultural stuff there that's important. And so, because in the SOI, it basically frames it as though everything's good with the unions and we're going to keep working collaboratively. When you talk to the unions, that's not the feedback that they've been given. I mean, some of the unions have passed motions of no confidence in management. So I just want to get to a point where we can kind of get an agreed focus on improving things rather than letting them deteriorate as they currently seem to be doing.
If you don't mind, I've got Tyler that's had his hand up for some time. Can we move on a wee bit? Just I won't drop it, but yeah. So Tyler.
Very good, guys. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Awesome. Just a quick one around the debt. So if I'm right in remembering, it's around $400 million post-earthquake. Is that correct?
The debt, sort of various measures of it. We've got 1.2 billion at a CCHL level, but there was about $400 million taken on post-earthquake. You're right.
Okay, and this is just for public knowledge and mine, because I didn't really dive deep into it enough. But for a bit of a history lesson, so councils asked CCHL after the earthquakes for $400 million to draw down on to be able to rebuild infrastructure.
Yeah, it was before my time, and I'm not sure what it was exactly used for, but absolutely, that's roughly the number that was paid as special dividends by Christchurch City Holdings to council at that time.
Okay, so then the question is, whose responsibility is it to pay back that $400 million that council's asked to pay, that council's asked for?
Absolutely, CCHL.
Okay, so okay, and so then if we're thinking about repaying that debt and also asking for $65 million over 26, 27 and 28, 66, how does that help you track along with the repayment of that debt if we're asking for dividends of around 65, 66? Do you think that's sustainable and do you think that's achievable?
Yeah, I think it is, and this
for long-term benefit.
This is. Yeah, in a perfect world, I wouldn't have that debt, and I could repay that debt much more quicker, of course. But we're comfortable with where we stand. We have proposed a dividend policy within the statement of intent, and the projected dividends align with what we've proposed there. That gives us some scope to reduce debt, albeit modestly, in the short term. But we're hopeful of continuing to modestly pay back that debt, which I think is a fair approach, balancing the needs of today versus those of the future.
Oh, that's good, and that was put into your statement, which was great. The next question is around capital investment and things of the sort, or all of the subs. Will they look to borrow more, all of the subs, and will they look to use PCHL as a guarantor, or will they look for you to borrow to put into that capital, for example, LPC with their new infrastructure, etc., etc.?
Yeah, for the most part, the subsidiaries borrow in their own right, and we don't guarantee those borrowings at CCHL. There is some borrowing that we do where it's most cost effective to borrow in the name of CCHL and on-lend that to the subsidiaries. We take a balanced approach, and some subsidiaries we support with on-lending, and some subsidiaries borrow in their own right for various reasons.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Celeste. You had your hand up, and I'll just...
Yeah, wasn't quite sure, but I just wondered, because you've got the noting provision for, whether it would be possible, in regards to the question I asked, getting some information. So it's just noting that there's been a request put through. Would that be possible? So the question around the types of engagement that we've got in terms of who the key...
Well, I think that would be covered here, but Matt's aware of what you were talking about, so I think that would be...
Just wondered if it would be useful to put it in this context, because it sort of speaks to Councillor Johansson's point around getting visibility of the culture, and I think part of that would be visibility of some of the discussions that are happening that we don't have access to, for instance, the town halls.
Town hall meetings, wherever they take place between the staff and management are private, and they should be. And then there are other meetings that you can have that are more public, if I'm correct, Matt. So, but just to remind us that we don't get involved with operation, that we are, just give me a minute. So, but I think what might be a good way forward, because if you look at the family of subs, which we're looking at the SOI, there's one issue here with one of their subs, which kind of is overshadowing the rest of the work that's being done by all of our other subs and the other work that the sub is doing. So I'm just wondering, Matt, maybe for this particular issue, that maybe yourself and LPC come back with a separate, another update to the councillors.
Yeah, more than happy to provide colour on what engagement is going on, community, staff, unions. That's absolutely no issue there. And if there are gaps, really appreciate the feedback.
Yeah,
So I guess-
because
Yeah, sure.
Tyler,
That'd be great.
Tyrone did offer up a couple of gaps that had been identified. So that but you've got that on, you've taken that on board. So.
And that, of course, will come back in time for the adoption of the statement.
Yeah, this is a draft. This is just a draft.
I'm just clarifying that because we don't have it written, so I'm just making sure that that's the.
This comes back to council
Yep, with that
by
request.
30th of June.
Sure.
And certainly we can come back to you well in advance.
That'd be
of
great.
that.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I realise that. So, Yanni, I do want to move this on because it has been identified, the issue that you've raised.
I'll send. So I've just got some additional points of feedback as well. Do you want me just to email those through, or
Feedback for what?
for the SOIs?
Yeah. So what are you wanting to for that to go back to Matt, or to what?
Yeah, I think that's the process, right? Like we did with the previous one. We
Yep,
just
so if you
bullet
can-
point list
yep.
of feedback.
Okay, great.
But I can quickly just raise them with you now, and then I'll just email them through. Is that
I'll just email them through, and that's the process. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. But I am keen to move this forward. Okay.
If he could tell us.
Yeah. Read them out.
Okay, cool. So the first one, I think we've already dealt with LPC around the performance measures around industrial relations and company culture. I did want in the LPC one for us to get more detail on the SOA regarding the city depot and future developments to mitigate the environmental effects. This is the one in Woolston. It's not mentioned in the SOI. It would just be good to know what's being done there. The second one was request CCHL to develop greater targets in regards to diversity in addition to gender. It's not a new request, but I think there has been some work being done on it. It leaves it quite broad. And the final one was just around continuing that request that we've had for some time to show restraint through senior executive remuneration, and ask that there's a continued focus on reporting on and closing the gap between the lowest paid versus the highest paid, which in the response that I've got, I understand CCHL have been doing work in that regard, so it's just really reinforcing the visibility of it. Thanks.
Thank you. And look, thank you, Yanni, for acknowledging the work that is happening, because at times we sit here and it seems very negative, but there is a lot of good work being done. So, and I want to thank Matt, and please pass that on to the subsidiaries as well. So, we do recognise that, but there are some gaps there, and if we can just tidy those up, that would be very good.
Thanks.
So I'm actually happy to move this from the chair. Yanni, are you happy to second it? Oh, sorry?
Inclusion of the additional points of feedback. Yeah.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? It's carried, thank you. And just on behalf of the chair... Okay, thank you. And just on behalf of the chair and deputy chair, I will move item 14 to go into PX. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Phil. All in favour? Against? It's carried, thank you.